On my 21st birthday, my parents handed me $50 and said it was from my grandma. A month later, my grandma came to visit and asked if I got the $10,000 she sent for my birthday. I said I only got 50. Then she slammed the table so hard the glasses shook. My parents were not poor. My dad worked in insurance and my mom was a bookkeeper. They lived in a nice house, drove decent cars, and never missed a vacation. But they were cheap with me specifically. My older sister Brooklyn got a car when she turned 16. I got a bus pass. Brooklyn got her college paid for. I got told to apply for scholarships. Brooklyn's wedding 2 years ago cost my parents $45,000. When I asked if there was any money set aside for my education, they said, "We've invested in Brooklyn because she showed more promise." That's a direct quote. I will never forget those words. For my 21st birthday, I didn't expect much. They took me out to dinner at a chain restaurant, split an appetizer 3 ways, and at the end of the meal, my mom handed me a card. Inside was $50 cash and a note that said, "Happy 21st, love Grandma." I called my grandma the next day to thank her. She was in the middle of something and said she'd talk to me later. She didn't mention an amount, so I figured 50 was it. I was grateful. $50 was $50. A month later, my grandma drove down from Vermont to visit for the weekend. She was sitting at the kitchen table with me while my parents were out grocery shopping. She said, "So did you do anything nice with the birthday money?" I said, "Yeah, I took my buddy out for dinner. The 50 covered most of it." She put her coffee down. She said, "50?" I said, "Yeah, the $50 you sent in the card." She stared at me for about 5 seconds. Then she said, "I didn't send you $50. I sent your parents a check for $10,000 with your name on it. I wrote it 3 weeks before your birthday and mailed it directly to this house because I wanted them to give it to you in person." I felt my stomach drop. I said, "Grandma, they gave me a card with $50 in it. That's all I got." She said, "Where's the rest?" I said, "I don't know. I didn't know there was a rest." She picked up her phone and called my dad. He didn't answer. She called again. Nothing. She called a third time and he picked up. She said, "Where is the $10,000 I sent for my grandson's birthday?" I could hear my dad's voice through the phone but couldn't make out the words. My grandma's face went from confused to furious in about 2 seconds. She said, "You cashed that check and gave him $50? She listened for another few seconds and then she slammed her hand on the kitchen table so hard the salt shaker fell over and my water glass sloshed. She said, "That money was not yours. It had his name on it. I don't care what bills you have. That was a gift for your son." My parents came home 20 minutes later. My dad walked in first and wouldn't look at me. My mom came in behind him and immediately said, "It's not as bad as it sounds." My grandma was standing in the kitchen with her arms crossed. She said, "Explain it then." My dad said, "We had some unexpected expenses. We were going to pay it back." My grandma said, "Pay it back? When? You've had that money for over a month and your son got $50. My mom said, "We put the rest towards some things we needed. The roof had a leak and Brooklyn's wedding still had some outstanding invoices." I said, "You used my birthday money to pay for Brooklyn's wedding?" My mom said, "It wasn't like that." I said, "What was it like then?" "You took $10,000 that had my name on it and used it for my sister's wedding bills and a roof repair and gave me $50 in a card and told me it was all from Grandma." My dad said, "We were going to tell you." My grandma said, "Tell him what? That you stole from him?" My dad said, "Mom, that's a strong word." She said, "It's the right word. You took a check I wrote to him, cashed it, kept $9,950 and handed him the scraps. What would you call that?" My mom started crying. She said, "We didn't mean for it to go this far. We were behind on some things and we panicked." My grandma looked at my dad and said, "I'm going to say this once. You're going to write your son a check for $9,950 before I leave this house on Sunday. If you don't, I'm changing my will and everything I have goes to him directly. Not through you, not through Brooklyn, directly to him." My dad tried to argue. He said they didn't have it liquid right now. My grandma said, "Then sell something. Take a loan. I don't care how you get it, but it will be in his hands by Sunday or I call my attorney Monday morning." She got the check on Saturday. My dad handed it to me without a word. My grandma watched him do it, then turned to me and said, "You deposit that today." I did. Nobody said much for the rest of the weekend. Brooklyn called me the following Tuesday and said I was being selfish for putting Grandma in the middle of things. I said, "I didn't put anyone anywhere." I said one sentence at a kitchen table. The truth did the rest.